The opinions, viewpoints, and beliefs presented on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the management, the affiliates and broadcast partners, or the sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Well, I mean, there's so many wonderful serial killers.
And hello everyone, and welcome to Scarefest Television. The original broadcast date is November 29th, 2019, and we are having borderline technical difficulties. Some of you that might find this on the Scarefest Facebook feed and on the website and on YouTube, but for some reason our Periscope is not showing connecting, and my personal Facebook feed is not connecting. So screw it, we're going to go forward because the real numbers are in the archive. That's what I keep telling myself. I want to welcome everybody to the show tonight. Happy Thanksgiving, and I hope everybody enjoys my glorious winter beard that is well underway and probably will not be trimmed until maybe January. You never know. We've got a lot of good segments tonight. Now, I do not have any fresh celebrity announcements tonight. We were hoping we would have one, but nobody said anything, so I'm just going to make the assumption that we didn't get the contract signed. But everybody was out doing Thanksgiving stuff. You can't, these big stars can't be bothered with contracts and horror movie conventions on Thanksgiving. But I am glad that you all are watching us tonight. We've got Bad Santa will be making an appearance tonight. I've got my first Bad Santa segment that my wife thinks I'm just batshit crazy. We've got our usual selection of movie reviews, on the road interviews, and coming up at 10 o'clock at the top of the hour, we will have a horror movie short and followed by a brief interview with the director and the writer of it. It's The Thing, and his name is Miles Beller. And he'll be coming on at the top of the hour. Quick reminder, you don't have to pull up the graphic, but it's Christmas season. Go to thescarefest.com, click on the merchandise link, and find that little link to the Talon Winery wines, and they make a great gift for the holiday season for the horror fan in your life. Now, my co-host tonight, of course, is Chad Harlan. My guest is Allen Marston. You don't need to go to Chad. Chad's fine. But Allen, thank you so much for coming on the show on a holiday weekend, and the man has to go to work bright and early in the morning. So this, thank you for doing this.
Thank you guys for having me. I love any time to do anything.
Now, tonight, our topic du jour is American serial killers. Allen gave a seminar on this this past year. I think you were actually going to do it 2 years ago, and that's when like Hurricane somebody dicked up the entire East Coast, and you were on call. So, so you've done your seminar now. First, I'll just ask you, how was the seminar received? Did you have a good crowd? Did they seem like they enjoyed themselves?
Yeah, right at the very beginning, I got a little worried because I had 5 or 6 people sitting down. I was kind of across the same slot as the Wraith Chasers, and figured, I wasn't going to get many in all. And as it ended up, we ended up full. The wonderful lady that was helping us out for that room, she shut the door afterwards. She said it was received really well, and she had to turn away around 20 to 25 people. So I'd say that did pretty well.
Where we had to move the seminars upstairs this year, a lot of people just didn't know where they were. And I know my own seminar, people drug in. They wanted to do it, and then they didn't really find anything until they were ready to go in. Excuse me, frog in my throat. But yeah, first of all, there seems to be this sudden fascination in America, maybe worldwide, who knows? I don't get out much, with serial killers. Obviously through our booking agent Amber Truax, who brings in the seminars for Scarefest and books some of my show guests. Do you have any insight on why it seems to me like it's just in the last couple of years that everybody is fascinated with serial killers? It seems like it's almost not a new phenomenon, but it's really out in front now.
Yeah, the one that's really hitting it's getting kind of laggy. But I think I understood what you said. Were you asking about some of the ones that are hitting the airway mainstream? Is that kind of like kind of what I pieced together? Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, just why they're on Netflix now? It just seems like they're everywhere.
I think it's just true crime in general. I mean, that's what's selling now, and you got to give the people what they.
Alan, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. We can hear you, but we can't see you, but that's fine. We just won't touch anything. The last question I asked Alan was that there are 25 to 50 serial killers active in the country at any given time. Do you have any insight into why we don't actually hear about this on even on the 24-hour news cycle?
I think more people are actually more fixated on politics right now. But you were talking about the 20 to 50. There's 90,000 people that go missing every year in the U.S. U.S. averages around 16,000 murders a year. Only 1% of those murders are actually serial in nature. So you're looking at roughly an average of 160 per year that are actually serial kills. So it kind of makes you wonder, how many of the 90,000 people that are actually missing are just unfound victims.
This is true, and of course, right now we're hearing all about everything right now is getting written off to human trafficking. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Everybody, okay, we've messed around a little bit. We're going to go on and do our first commercial break. We will be right back.
Everyone is talking about CBD oil, and it seems like almost everyone is using it. The research is ongoing, but the apparent health benefits are overwhelming. If you're going to use CBD products, though, what brand should you buy? First, find out where the hemp was grown. Imports are flooding the market. How potent is it? Look for a brand that plainly states its concentration on the label. And look for full spectrum CBD. This means the oil contains CBD and all the other cannabinoids, terpenes, and nutrients that are found in the entire cannabis plant. Look for Blue Leaf CBD oil. Blue Leaf Naturals is a Kentucky proud company. They use only Kentucky-grown hemp, supporting Kentucky farmers and businesses. Visit their website at blueleafcbd.com now and use the code SMILE at checkout for free shipping.
Radio and TV, and I'm at the Lord Baltimore Hotel in Baltimore, Maryland at the World Oddities Expo. I'm here with Callie Coble and her amazing animals.
Hi guys, so I'm Callie Coble. I'm the owner of Coble Taxidermy Emporium. Me and my husband Blake travel across the country doing different expos selling our taxidermy. We sell wholesale taxidermy and skulls. We purchase out of large collections and estates, things like that, so that these animals get to be reappreciated again. The mounts that you see behind me are in the $200 to $300 range, and even less than that. We try to keep it pretty affordable for everybody.
Fantastic. And if you're interested in hearing more about Callie Coble and what she does, You can check her out on her website at
Coble Taxidermy Emporium. We're on Facebook and Instagram. Follow us there.
Christmas. Really bad Santa here to spread some holiday cheer. Someone said to me the other day, what is Santa doing showing up at Thanksgiving? And I said, you had your lights up since Halloween. What the hell? Anyhow, I thought I'd take a minute to help you get through Thanksgiving by reminding you of some nice things you should say at dinner. Tying the legs together keeps the inside moist. That's a huge breast. If I don't undo my pants, I'm gonna burst. It's a little dry. Do you think you still want to eat it? Don't play with your meat. Just spread the legs open and stuff it in. Do you think you'll be able to handle all these people? How long will it take after you stick it in? You know it's ready when it pops up. That's the biggest one I've ever seen. Just lay back and take it easy. I'll do the rest. How long do I have to beat it before it's ready? There. Now, have a happy Thanksgiving. Bite my ass. There was Bad Santa's first segment. We're going to have one of them every week now until Christmas is over with. We're going to kick it over now to Chad. We are talking on Skype by audio only to our guest, Allen Marston. We're trying to talk about serial killers, but nothing is cooperating tonight. Chad, over to you.
Lord help me, I spent all last weekend with Bad Santa, and it doesn't get any better. Allen, I want to take a second. I've told people this in the past. I talked to you a few years ago at Scarefest, and I started bouncing some ideas about seminars off of you, and you really encouraged me to apply and try to become a speaker, and that has really changed a lot in my life because I've become a speaker. I've got hooked up with Wes, and he's been gracious enough to let me on here. But I owe all that to your encouragement, and I want to thank you for that.
Man, that's great to hear, man. But you had that inside you all. Just needed a little push, you know.
Well, I certainly appreciate it. So I know this year, and unfortunately, our seminars were on top of each other. So I was presenting at the same time you were, so I didn't get to see it. But I know you were presenting about American serial killers. Can you give us some idea of who you were talking about and what got you interested in this field?
Yeah. So for this one, with the time frame that I had to really look and cut things down. I had some of the ones that I really wanted to do, but there was supposed to be some other people talking on those in particular, and so I kind of cut it down to 4. I did Ray Metheny, which was I did Gary Leon Ridgway. Most people know as the Green River Killer. I did a really sick individual named Albert Fish, and he'll never make a presence in any of my presentations ever again, just because of what I went through looking into his life. And I did my last one was on Larry Ayler, who got his starts right there in Lexington. I thought that would be kind of fun to throw in there.
What got you into this field or to this subject matter?
To be quite honest, it started, I'm going to say it was my 11th grade year, and I needed another class to get my accelerated diploma. And one of them was a college class, and I said, well, I'll pick psychology. So I started with that and ended up doing 2 years of that. But they really started to I hate to say speak to me, but I wanted to see, what really made him tick. And I ended up doing my final paper on him. And ever since then, it's always been, a subject at the back of my mind that I was always, really interested in. And I just felt once I saw that you guys were looking for some more presentations along those lines, I was like, well, this will be perfect. I'll give it a shot and see how it goes.
Well, I'm not going to let it drop when you say that you won't talk about Albert Fish anymore because of what you went through researching. That's where I'm immediately going to go to. Why don't you tell us a little bit about him?
I figured you probably would. So Albert Fish, gosh, really, really vile man. His main victims were, children and teens. His method of his murders were stabbing them with a knife and strangulation. He's just nasty, just because he chose kids. And in my field of work and the way I've always been raised is, kids are our future, and to go out and do that to them, man, it honestly gave me like awful dreams at night, and I got to where I didn't even want to look into him.
I know he sounds very heinous. I've looked at him a little bit too. He was involved in cannibalism too, wasn't he?
A little bit, yeah. So let me read you a little list of his characteristics: sexual pervert, cannibalism, coprophilia, which is sexual arousal from feces, urophilia, aroused by urine, pedophilia, and masochism. That is his whole little thing in a little nutshell right there.
Certainly a heinous individual, but I know you talked about several other people during this. What made you connect those three?
So we'll start with just say Joe Ray Metheny, the cannibal. He was just I was looking for one that would just kind of pop and give me a good start to get everybody ready for what we were fixing to do, and so I started it off. I did the whole thing, the whole about me stuff, and did some fun facts, and then I threw onto the screen this big juicy pork barbecue sandwich, and asked everybody, who likes a good barbecue sandwich. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, then they were actually selling barbecue outside that day. Weren't they out in the parking lot? So that that was another little funny thing with that. But yeah, so he was in Baltimore, Maryland. Roughly, his main murders were like 93, 94, 95, around that area. He basically, well, here's how he really got into it. He came home one day and he saw that his wife and son had left him. He was a truck driver. That kind of sent him over the edge, and he started to take all his grief and frustrations out on some prostitutes and people working in the area, of females. And so he basically went back to working at one of his old jobs, and he ended up getting this trailer, which was a great place for him to live. So he went down to a bridge one night, and ended up taking 2 street workers there and killed them. One of them was a homeless person, lived under that bridge. And he looked over and he saw this one guy that was standing there fishing. Whether he saw him or not, he was going to make sure that he didn't leave anybody behind. So he killed them, and he's like, well, what do I do with these bodies? So biggest thing popped in his head. I got it. I'll start up a little barbecue stand and start mixing in some little bit of human meat into the pork. And he said, because that was the best meat that it closely resembled. So he would grind his victims up and put them into the meat and sell them on the roadside stand.
That's pretty heinous. I can see why that had some effect on you as you were researching it.
Yeah, this one, and if you ever watch Criminal Minds, they actually did a kind of episode on him, but it was loosely based on Metheny. So I started putting those two and two together, and that's what kind of made me put that one in there, hoping that people had seen the same episode and possibly make the same correlations on it. He ended up dying in jail, though, so we didn't have to do anything with him. So he excuse me, got choked up.
I appreciate that. Let me toss it back to Wes.
Now, Alan, of course, you know me and doing the research. I didn't do a lot, but one thing that came up before, it seems like American serial killers are more imaginative in what they do with the bodies afterwards, as you just pointed out. But number-wise, the Europeans give us a real run for our money. Do you think that's a cultural thing?
That's actually a really good question. As of right now, the U.S. is leading in serial killer production. Supposedly, we're like 85% of all serial killers listed out there. So I think if you start looking at it, I don't know if we're more imaginative or it's just more heard of, But there, overseas, it's a whole lot there as well, and I think they're just as imaginative as we are.
Because victims, the other white meat, that's always fun. Now, one thing I've noticed, now this is just one of my little keen observations that I've made. In the world of Facebook memes, as strange as that sounds, you pointed out, now, I don't remember, of course, I haven't seen any memes about Albert Fish, but I do know I've seen a couple about, you cannot do a meme about John Wayne Gacy, and I think there was one more. But you pointed out the sick part about the kids. When there are kids involved, everybody, it just really, of course, none of it's funny. We find a way to in this genre, to laugh about it. But I guess the question is, when is it too soon?
That's a great question. With me, I've got a dark sense of humor anyway, so I don't really see any kind of time frame there. I think it's more of the subject matter, like you don't see Fish because of what he did, and then you see like Bundy because he was romanticized, just because he was a good looking individual and a ladies' man,
Yeah, that was another thing when Netflix did the movie on him. A bunch of people just lost their minds because they used an attractive male, actor to play the part. But that was kind of what you just pointed out. This was a good-looking guy who was all about it,
Oh yeah, definitely. That was part of his hook, You take a good-looking fellow that has an injury. Are you going to help him over, probably like a late 40s or 50s, portly individual that has an injury? Which one are you going to pick to help, being a female?
All right, everybody, we're going to keep on schedule here, do our next commercial break. We'll be right back. We are talking to Allen Marston about American serial killers. Do you feel lost in life? Do you seem to be stuck in emotions that are not yours? Is your home not the sanctuary it should be? Contact Spirit Mechanics, where they take a team approach to your metaphysical and spiritual problems. Spirit Mechanics specializes in aura cleansing, stone attunement, attachment removal, and house cleansings. Spirit Mechanics tailors their approach to your individual spiritual path and needs. Now find them monthly at the Central Kentucky Mystical Market in Lexington. Or on Facebook by searching Spirit Mechanics, that's MECHANIX. Spirit Mechanics, for your spiritual health and well-being.
Billy here at Lexington Comic-Con 2019 with Mr. Eric Puckett, artist. Eric, how long you been doing this, man?
Let's see. I've been doing artwork my whole life. The convention scene, I think I started around 2010, 2011.
2010, 2011. What's the biggest con you ever been to? I know it's hard to pick. There's so many that you've been to that's grown and grown over the years.
Oh, this one right now is probably the highest attended one that I go to. But I like, Days of the Dead, Scarefest, of course, Comic-Con here in Lexington.
I'm not going to ask you what's your favorite because everybody asks me that, and it's really hard. I know there's some.
Every one that I'm at's my favorite.
Yeah.
I think, because we've known each other a long time, and you get to know vendors, and everybody becomes like a big family. So.
Right. The people make it.
Yeah, it is.
So, did you go to school for art, or did
Yes.
you did?
Yes.
You did. What school did you go to?
I went to Morehead State. I'm not going to tell you what year I graduated.
You ain't got to do that. All right, what's I'm going to ask you one more question.
Sure.
And, what's your favorite piece? Can I know there's, again, it's hard to pick, but what's one of your favorite pieces that you ever did for a customer?
I did a Frankenstein for a customer, and they didn't end up taking it. And I had it with me, and I had Boris Karloff's daughter sign it.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember seeing pictures of that.
Yeah, it's actually that green Frankenstein there in the middle.
Okay, yeah.
On my banner. She signed it, and I keep it in my studio, so that's kind of like one of my prized possessions, I guess. That's probably one of my favorites.
Man, Eric, you have a great show this week, man.
Thanks, Billy.
Yeah, man. Good to see you.
I appreciate it.
Hey Scarefest fans, this is Joe Lewis of Bonehead Weekly here with another review. I hope your Thanksgiving was great. I hope you had a good time with your family, the ones you had to talk to. Today I am doing a review of the latest Stephen King film. I know I've done 2 or 3, but in my defense, there's been a lot of Stephen King movies. So we're going to talk about Dr. Sleep. Dr. Sleep is based on this book by Stephen King. Directed by Mike Flanagan. I was really excited because I don't actually particularly care for this book. It's one of the few Stephen King books I'm not a big fan of. And it may be because I'm not a huge fan of The Shining. I don't know. But I love his work. I like Gerald's Game. I liked Hush. If you've got Netflix, definitely check out The Haunting of Hill House. But I was excited because he was doing it. And it had Ewan McGregor in it. Great. Number one, going to do it. So the movie's a little odd in the fact that about 2/3 of it is an adaptation of this book. It's about Danny, and after he grew up, hopefully you're familiar with The Shining. If not, why are you watching Scarefest? And Danny Torrance is all grown up. He's an alcoholic like his father. He finds a place where he kind of fits in, where he helps. It's basically in a home where he helps older folks kind of pass over as they die. That's the reason he's Dr. Sleep, right? Now, basically he has The Shining. There's these group of the soul suckers who kill and murder children to take away their essence. Their steam is what they call it. Hey, kitty. Now, you've got the basic plot of it. Should you watch it? Yes. The problem is most of you didn't go watch it. It's been out for a few weeks and it's bombing. And it's not because it's a bad movie. In fact, it's a lot of fun. Like I said, 2/3 of it is an adaptation of the book. The other third is a direct sequel to Kubrick's version. Now, the funny thing about that is that Stephen King's been very vocal over the years about not liking Stanley Kubrick's version. Is Kubrick's version good? I mean, is Kubrick's The Shining good? Well, yeah, it's a masterpiece. It's Kubrick. Is it a good adaptation of The Shining? No. No, not necessarily. And the miniseries, directed by Mick Garris, probably lacks the auteur that The Shining with Stanley Kubrick has. But if you're a fan of the original, The Shining, this is your way of having a sequel. If you like the book, I think it's fairly close adaptation to the book. And it's a wonderful movie. Go see it. Go see it. Leave your family now. Check it out. If you're in Lexington, it's playing a couple places, big cities. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Dr. Sleep. It's a little rough, though. It's 2.5 hours long. It's more of a ghost story than a straight-out horror film. I know, to me, there's a difference. It's a ghost story, and there's a scene with a child murder in the middle of it that's kind of graphic that may be hard for some of you. Just letting you know. However, it plays out, and I loved it. So check out Dr. Sleep, directed by Mike Flanagan. This has been Joe Lewis of Bonehead Weekly. Thank you, Scarefest.
Fact is still stranger than fiction, and this week in horror history, we take a look back at the true horrors of man and the horrors created for the screen. The true horrors of man take us back to 1957 in Plainfield, Wisconsin, where store owner Bernice Warden suddenly disappeared. Police investigating the disappearance were led to the last known customer of her store, a man by the name of Ed Gein. After he was picked up by police for questioning, a search began on the Gein farm, and police quickly discovered the decapitated body of Bernice. Upon further inspection of the property, they discovered that Ed had also killed another local woman who had gone missing, and he had been robbing graves. Ed was using body parts of the deceased to make bowls, utensils, lampshades, and a woman's suit. These discoveries earned him the nickname the Butcher of Plainfield, and Ed's crimes and horrors quickly captivated the country, which would later inspire some of horror's most notorious villains, such as Norman Bates from Psycho, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs. The cryptozoology field had a major event about this time back in 1966, when the residents of a small town in West Virginia called Point Pleasant began reporting sightings of a flying man with giant wings and glowing red eyes. This creature quickly became known as the Mothman. Reported sightings would continue, coming in with over 100 eyewitnesses, and a little more than a year later, in December of 1967, the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant would collapse, killing 46 people. Sightings of the Mothman ended after the collapse, which led to speculation that the Mothman was responsible and solidified the legend. This week in horror TV history, we have the release of the miniseries Salem's Lot, back in 1979. The adaptation of the book by the same name was written by horror legend Stephen King and is noted as being his favorite out of all of his books. Salem's Lot combines elements of both the vampire and haunted house subgenres of horror and will forever be a horror cult classic.
And welcome back, everybody, to Scarefest Television. We are talking tonight to Mr. Allen Marston about serial killers in the United States of America. Okay, now I'm going to ask you some opinion pieces now, Allen. Of course, just in the previous segment, we talked. It talked a little bit about Ed Gein. We had an entire show devoted to the guy. Do you know of any serial killers that have been as imaginative as Ed Gein in what they did with their victims, other than the whole barbecue thing?
Not really. I mean, to me, Gein actually, I mean, he was the most imaginative of any of them to end up taking, parts and make other things out of them. You've had a couple other that have done the same thing, kind of, And I think it's probably after hearing of what he did. And then you also have Dahmer, you know, that would keep, you know, heads and parts in his refrigerator. But to me, I think Gein is the quintessential of imaginative things to do with bodies.
Now, one thing I read on the internet, I don't know if I know you referred to him, the Green River Killer, Ridgway. But now, according to the stats that I'm reading, he is considered the most prolific American serial killer, with between 70 and 90 victims, depending on whether what they pointed at him and what he pretty much didn't confess to directly. But is to your knowledge, does that stat stand? Is he considered the most prolific?
So he was actually indicted for 48. But like you said, he's confessed to a whole lot more. And yes, he was until here recently. And that is going to be possibly maybe a little hint to what I may be putting in for next year is Sam Little. They just have started to confirm everything that he's saying.
Now, is Sam Little, okay, now, this is, without doing any research, now, was he the guy, like, in the rest home or the hospital?
No, he was, no. Let me see if I can get this correct. I haven't done a ton on him, but I want to say he was down in Georgia, and he breaks a little bit of the molds as well. You know, they always say it's a white male, age 35, around that area, but Little is actually an African-American man, and he started, I guess that would hit him too. Yeah, he was in his 30s when he started then. That kind of changes the paradigm a little bit of the serial killer world.
I'm unfamiliar with him, especially since they're still counting. That just blows me away.
Right.
Now we talked about who had the most. Now what about who am I thinking of? There was one, they called him like the Angel of Death, and then he worked. I'm thinking in a hospital, and basically he killed terminal people. In other words, he put them out of their misery. But do you know who I'm talking about?
I do. The name escapes me, but he was basically seen as a mercy killer.
Right. Okay. Now, what I was going to say,
it was around your area, wasn't
he? No, he was not. I'm going to. No. You got me tickled now. I don't remember what I had my next question in mind. It had to do with,
I think his name was Don Park.
Okay. Boy, I'm drawing a blank tonight. The first segment where everything went to hell has just completely thrown me off. So we're going to do our final commercial break of the hour. When we come back, I'll toss it over to Chad, and we'll close out this segment.
Akashic Awareness is a metaphysical healing and learning center unlike any other. A large selection of crystals, gems, and minerals greet you as you walk in the door, but from that point onward, the journey is yours. They offer a great selection of metaphysical tools, state-of-the-art holistic healing, with classes and lectures scheduled throughout the month. Akashic Awareness is open Tuesday through Saturday, noon until 6:30, 7 on Friday and Saturday. Visit their website for a current calendar of their almost daily special events and guests at akashicawareness.com. And while you are there, be sure to join their email list to stay current. Akashic Awareness, 328 Sycamore Street, Elizabethtown, Kentucky.
Hello there, DB Dornack, with Louisville Halloween at the Scarefest, and I'm out here interviewing potential test subjects, but also plenty of just horror fans. I've got one fan here. He's going to show us some of his cool swag he's got. I think he's got some signatures he's going to show us, and a story, I think. Could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Tim Davis.
Tim Davis.
I come from Casey County, Kentucky, and yes, all the horror stories are true.
Yes. So then the Casey County horror stories. So the man with the axe is still just wandering around out there.
Well, yes, and his cousins are all running around as well.
and you have some.
Oh, that's some incredible swag.
Some signatures here. So what do we got here? Introduce this off for us, in case they can't see everything.
Well, this, of course, is the $6 Million Man himself, the star of the show, Lee Majors.
Lee Majors.
Kentucky's own. Of course, started out as Heath Barkley, became the $6 Million Man, the icon of every kid growing up in the 1970s. If you didn't have that action figure with that goofy arm with the goofy skin and the circuits,
you were nothing.
Yeah, you were out of the loop, baby. That hollow eye you could see through, the whole thing, baby. He was also Colt Seaver, bounty hunter, modern day bounty hunter.
Nice. And so he signed. What did he sign here? What did he put here?
Best wishes.
But you said that there was one question you had for Lee Majors that you weren't able to ask. Is that right?
That's right. I've been binge watching $6 Million Man episodes this week, getting prepared to meet the man, the myth that is Lee Majors. And he actually said in an episode of the $6 Million Man a piece of dialogue that I think is absolutely the filthiest piece of dialogue ever uttered on network television in the 1970s.
And we don't have any kind of parental guidelines. We don't have to worry about any of that. You can just say whatever it is. You go right ahead.
He tells Britt Eklund, and I quote, "Sorry, I had to annihilate your porthole."
Oh. That's awkward.
I really wanted to ask him about that, because how in the world can you say that and still sell action figures to children?
My goodness, I am shocked. What's your favorite obscure B film? Tell us about it.
Oh my God! I mean, you want to get into genres, subgenres? I mean, I love.
Give us one really good one.
Oh my gosh, Moon of the Wolf is great.
My fans will like that one.
Love Moon of the Wolf. Dennis Jansen, just that great, the hair on his chest, the permanent tan. It's got Jeffrey Lewis, which is always a good. Royal Dano. If you're going to have a B movie, you got to have Royal Dano playing some kind of crazy dude. You know, Bradford Dillman, I think, is also in that film.
So, yeah.
You know, got to have a bad guy. It's werewolves in the bayou.
That's right.
So, I mean, how can you not love that?
Well, of course. And tonight, this is Friday the 13th, and I'm told there's a full moon. There's probably about a lot of werewolves out right now.
The great Clu Gallagher. Talk about bad films. Clu has done an entire encyclopedia full of bad movies. He starred with Chuck Norris. He's been on westerns on TV. He's had his head ripped off. He's seen more boobs than Joe Bob Briggs. This man has done it all.
And what did he put on? He wrote something on your picture here.
Yes, he asked me. He said, "Tim, do I look sick in this photo?" You know, I said...
He looks a little awkward.
Yeah, it looks kind of awkward. He said, apparently his boots were being changed while this publicity still was being taken. Can you imagine that? What a professional. This man is having his boots removed, and yet he's still there for his fans. That's commitment. That is the man. I drove 2 hours from Casey County through bog-infested swamps, through inbred-infested henchmen to see.
You made it. You made it to Scarefest. And, you know, there's all kinds of great celebrities here. There's all kinds of great fans, a lot of great cosplay, a lot of great artwork, a lot of great things to buy. Come on out, and you'll love it.
Welcome back, everybody, to Scarefest Television. Alan, we're talking to Allen Marston on the phone right now. Alan, I had one more question, then we'll toss it over to Chad to finish out the hour. To your knowledge, of course, criminal profiling, they go back and they profile these serial killers. Who do you know of that was the most cooperative, that helped the FBI build their profiling the most?
To be 100% honest, Wes, I'm not sure on that. I know that Bundy helped in a couple cases, but I don't know who would actually be the top for that.
Okay, that was something that popped up because, like, Ridgway apparently was completely uncooperative. Just from what I read, even though he killed the most people, and so that was just one more question I had. But now I'm gonna toss it over to Chad. Chad, you've got to the top of the hour.
Hey, Alan. It occurs to me as we're talking, you selected some certainly famous and prolific killers. How did you select those out of the pool of serial killers that are out there in America? What about these folks jumped out at you?
I tried to keep it regional to start off with, kind of pick them from different places. When I read about Metheny, that rang because he's from Baltimore, Maryland. That's the next state up from me, So I figured I'd include him. Plus, he had that little stick with the selling the barbecues. Ridgway, I picked him because he was the most prolific. Let's see, Fish, because even though I hated it, I picked him because he was just vile. And that's kind of what I wanted to bring out in my presentation, was that, we look at all these people and we think they're interesting. Some people idolize them, put them up on pedestals, and I wanted people to see the way that they really are, because each person, and this is another reason why I picked them, is because I could actually get their confession letters. So I read their confession letters, and at the end of each of their segments, to kind of give people an insight of what was going on in their head and why they because they explained why they did what they did. And just to see how these people really are, that possibly we shouldn't be putting them up on pedestals.
What were some of the reasons they gave?
So Methane's, it all started because of his wife, and he basically went down and said that, he had no remorse for anything that he did. And the only thing that he regretted was not killing the two people that he really wanted to kill the most, and that was his ex-wife and her lover. You get down to Fish, and his just went off the deep end with talking about how he selected them and what gave him pleasure. And you look at take Gary Ridgway, he just kind of went through and explained how his childhood kind of shaped the way that he ended up the person that he was, because his mom domineered him so much, and she would just make fun of him at any cost. And then when I got down to Ayler, he kind of did the same and just explained why he did it, the way he felt, and if he actually had some remorse over what he did.
Just out of my personal curiosity, did you look into H.H. Holmes any, or was he kind of off your radar?
Nah, he was on the list just because he is with the whole murder house, but there's still a whole lot of things that just doesn't fit with me. So me, I'm kind of a factual person, and if I can't find all the facts that I want, I don't include it. I don't want to steer people the wrong way.
I understand that, and I want to take a second again to thank you for your influence in my progression, and it's always a pleasure talking to you. And I look forward to seeing you again in person soon.
Yeah, and I want to take a second to thank you and Wes and Anita and Brandon and everybody. You know, it's Amber. They make us feel like family. It's great to be a presenter at Scarefest, and it means a ton. And I just want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for that.
I appreciate that. With that, I'm going to toss it back over to Wes.
And Alan, we're going to let you go in here in just a minute. I was just reading about another one, Kemper. Now, everyone, I'm not going to tell you what Kemper did with one of his victims' heads, except to tell you that before he did it, he cut it off. Now, use your imagination. But I did read something interesting about him. He turned himself in because he wasn't making the news. He wasn't getting press coverage, so he said, well, what the hell's the point of doing it? Do you think it's better for the public to know that there is a serial killer lurking around, or do you think depriving them of their publicity is... How do you view that, Alan?
Well, for me, I think one of the things that really defines a serial killer is their acronym. What name do they give them? You know, and I think that's one mistake, is if they actually stopped naming these killers, that might help a little bit. Mm-hmm. Also, I think we should know what's going on, and given what we can. But I think that actually drives some of them too, is to to make the news, to get that publicity, to become famous. And it's a double-edged sword, because we all want all the information that we can get. But then again, when you put this all out there are people there that want to try to top the last. They want to be the greatest, the best. Just like, anybody's job, they want to do the best. So they kind of see this as another thing. Then you got the ones that just have, mental problems, that don't really care. They just do it because they love to do it, But to answer your question, I think that does actually come into play a heck of a lot on some of them.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show tonight. Thank you for sharing your opinions. Sorry everything went south early on, but we'll piece it together. We'll make a good episode out of it. Everybody, this has been the first hour of Scarefest Television. I want you to stay tuned after the break. We got another segment coming up. Then we're going to come back and we're going to have our movie short for the night, which is The Thing. And then while The Thing's on, I'm going to be getting Miles Beller on the phone, and we'll have a quick interview with him. Everybody, we'll be right back.
G'day Scarefest fans, Glenn here from Fakeshemp.net. Once again here to take you back in time to look at a classic Australian horror film before moving forward and looking at something brand new and completely disgusting. If you can imagine Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window taking place in the middle of the Australian outback, but instead of looking through windows across a courtyard, it's windows of cars along a desolate highway, then we're talking Road Games. That's the entire premise of the 1981 film starring Stacey Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis, directed by the Australian legend Richard Franklin. There's a serial killer on the loose, and Stacey Keach plays a truck driver who's driving cross-country, picks up a hitchhiker, Jamie Lee Curtis, and while radio reports are saying that there's a serial killer on the loose, they spot a green van and they suspect that that's their guy. So as they drive from one end to the other, this green van kind of happens to crisscross with them as they go. It's a really tense and dramatic thriller that plays with the genre and exploits all the tropes and makes for one gripping slice of horror. This one was directed by Richard Franklin, who we consider to be the Aussie Hitchcock. In fact, he was Hitchcock's protege at one point in time. He later went on to make American films like Psycho 2, which was actually given to him based on the strength of Road Games. He also made FX2, Cloak and Dagger with Henry Thomas, and a whole bunch of other films. I suppose Road Games is one of our most recognised Ozploitation films overseas, Jamie Lee Curtis having already been a scream queen and Stacey Keach being a fairly prominent American actor. Its formulaic narrative and its connection to Hitchcock kind of made it very accessible to international audiences. My personal love for this film actually comes from the screenwriter Everett D. Roche. This guy was an American expat that moved to Australia to forge a career in writing, and he did so with a vengeance. He is one of our most prolific screenwriters of all time, He dabbled in genre films like no other. He made television, he made cinema. His films are highly celebrated down here. A lot of horror fans from all around the world know his stuff. And while he sadly passed away a few years ago, his legacy is massive, and I really encourage you to look him up, try to find some of his films, and dive right in. So again, the good news for you is that this one has only just been released on Blu-ray in the United States through Scream Factory. So you guys, hit up Amazon, hit up Scream Factory directly, buy this movie on Blu-ray, soak it up. It is a delicious blend of suspense and thrills and violence, and well, it's just one of our best. And that brings me to a brand new Aussie film that is making waves all around the world at film festivals alike. A truly sadistic and depraved horror film called The Furies. This is classic stuff. This takes a certain subgenre of, I guess you could almost call it torture porn, infuses it with other little bits and pieces, and just delivers one hell of a bang for buck slasher horror subgenre kind of mishmash that is very hard to define, but I'll do my best. Think Hostel, Hard Target, The Running Man, and infuse it with movies like The Hills Have Eyes and Wrong Turn and that kind of, inbreedy kind of gross stuff that we all love. This exquisitely depraved film sees a bunch of women being kidnapped. They wake up, finding themselves hunted by masked men who are completely depraved, all for entertainment's sake and a pay-per-view audience. Of course, this is nothing new. We've seen it all done before. Those titles I mentioned earlier, I think WWE even did a film called Condemned, which was pretty much the same thing. Where The Furies excels is that it really taps into that subgenre with maximum effect. It knows where to be gory. It knows what punches to pull. The social awareness factor of it is very topical, if you will, so as well as maintaining the old audience for these type of films, it picks up a whole new one that are going to get something completely different out of it. And with villainous, murderous characters, with names like Melonhead, Rodface, Pigman, it's the stuff of nightmares. I mean, I think these guys should go down in history with some of these horror greats. Whether they do or not remains to be seen, but with your help, watching this movie and celebrating it, then they definitely will. So keep your eyes open for this one. I'm sure it's going to be coming your way. It's been doing great things at the festivals down here. It's already doing some good things overseas. It's just one of the many, many great horror films coming out of our country right now. And I really, really hope you guys get to celebrate it the way we do. So that's it from me. Thanks again for letting me spill my love for Aussie horror all over your screens. And I'll catch you next time.
What's up, bro? What's up, man? Beer? Oh, yeah, I could really use one. I got you. I felt this, I'm a little creeped out, man. I just felt this black figure following me around all day,
A black, scared of a black figure.
Yes,
Typical
man.
white guy, man. It
Like,
sounds so racist,
out of the corner
man.
of my eye, and when I look, I see it, man. It's just, giving me a little chills, bothering me.
You need to grow up, man. Don't be such a bitch,
Hey,
man.
just leave me alone about it, all right? Okay?
Oh, that scares you. You know the legend, right? Those boys in the park back in the 80s?
The ritual?
Yeah, crazy bitch brings all her friends camping for a trip. Kind of like me and you and Brian last week.
Yeah, I remember that.
Brother comes, kills them all.
Oh,
Dead.
shit.
Dead. Dead.
Okay.
Brother kills them all. She ends up basically getting away. Nobody knows where to. I think somewhere around these parts. You scared now?
Yeah, actually I am a little bit.
Come on. I figured you would be.
Dude, had to be a news cover-up. Because I did not hear that story.
Yeah.
I heard it was some kind of satanic ritual.
It probably was. I'm Jewish. I don't believe in that shit, but
I don't know, man. You believe what you believe, right?
Whatever you think,
Yeah.
It's kind of like that duel at Myers Park, back in the Wild West.
Yeah, I remember that. My uncle, he's told me a couple stories, a few fairy tales, a couple, scary stories. Kind of scare me off, shake me up a little bit. But I don't buy into that shit too much,
Yeah, it doesn't look like it.
Hey, okay, right now I'm feeling it, okay?
Yeah, okay, I get it, man. I remember my first scary movie.
Oh, yeah, fuck you.
Alright. I will. Whatever, man. Good to see you.
Yeah. What the hell is that?
Nothing, man.
Telling you, man, that black figure.
Ain't no black figure, man. Probably squirrel or some shit, man.
Yeah, whatever.
Come on.
I'm telling you, I know what I know.
It's the woods, man. It's animals. There ain't no black figure.
It don't matter. I'm seeing what I'm seeing, okay?
Yeah. All right. All right. You calm down.
I'm not mad. I'm chilling.
Might be Friday the 13th, full moon, doesn't mean shit. You know I'm just giving you shit. You're a good guy, man. You know I love you.
Yeah, you ain't too bad yourself.
You say it back?
What the fuck is that? That black figure I've been telling you about. Devil.
What the fuck are you?
Coaches.
What are we even running from, dude?
Beats me, man. Oh shit. Oh shit.
What?
I think I'm gonna go touch it, you know, just so we can see if it's real. Oh shit. Oh shit. Where'd it go?
You were...
He was right the fuck there.
I can't believe I'm down. What the fuck is
Fucking-
going on, dude?
Fucking black.
I'm sorry, dude. What the fuck? This is fucked up.
I don't know.
Let's get the fuck inside, dude.
And that was our feature presentation of the evening, everyone. The Thing. And now we are joined by the writer, director, and I did not realize it till just now when I actually watched the credits. Also did the music for it. The Thing by Miles Beller. Welcome to the show, Miles.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Just fine. Now, how long have you been doing this? How long have you been in the movie biz?
Well, me and my friends have been making shorts for fun since about 2009, so about 10 years. But I just started taking film classes at U of L about a year and a half ago, and then I started taking film more serious about the end of the year last year. And then, so probably about a year, I made about 4 or 5 shorts since then, and it's definitely what I want to do for the rest of my life, making films and making the music, writing, all that stuff.
Now, question. Okay, since now that brings me to a good point. Okay, now you were doing it as a hobby.
Yeah.
Now you're taking it a little bit more seriously. What do you do differently now than you did back when you were just doing it for fun?
Well, you know, when I went to school, I took screenwriting classes, so I learned that you actually have to write a screenplay when you actually make a movie, and then I structured my movies a lot better. Me and my friends, we would just get together and we just film something, and that was it. We just figure out what we were filming the day of. There wasn't a lot of planning. So now it's all about, I come up with the idea, I write it out, I write out a storyboard, screenplay, and then I get actual actors. I didn't use actors until recently because it was just kind of for fun. So it's more planning, I guess, now than anything, and a lot more time is put into it, more meticulous, I would say. So a lot more planning.
Now, on the Thing, I want to ask you, the cinematography was good, everything was, but I'm trying to discern, is there a deeper message behind this other than just what was that a premonition, or are you trying to leave that up to the viewer, or is this a whole thing about smoking because the guy played with his lighter? Is there a message behind this short?
You just brought up a good point. See, when filmmakers make movies, you know, you leave it up to the audience, and the idea about the smoking was something I hadn't thought about. So it's all about it. But it's this. The main thing is it's based off of a short passage in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, the book called The Thing, and in that passage, in the book, it's kind of like a short little passages that have a message, kind of like if you watch a Twilight Zone episode, there's always a message in it, and it's always something interesting. Well, with The Thing, it was about seeing, I guess, a premonition of your death, like you said, and that's basically the premise of it. But you can look at it, like you said, different ways. You can say, well, maybe it's about smoking because he dies because he has coughing problems, cancer. You know, you can read into it whatever you want. But yeah, I mean, or it could just be another one thing I was thinking when I was making it was it could be him just seeing the classic death, Grim Reaper, kind of going after him, and then he turns out that's the Grim Reaper's taking him at the end. So there's different ways you can look at it, like you said.
Well, I guess that's my own phobias kicking in, because that was the first thing when I was looking back at it, because he did dick around with the cigarette lighter, and that was obviously a focal point. But I guess it was a lot of that was for identification purposes.
I guess so, yeah.
But now, then one more question on that, and I'm gonna kick it over to Chad.
Yeah.
What was the deal with the whole burning the lighter under the can? Is that now the reason I'm going to ask that question is that was that part of the script? Was that something that the actor, because he had to dick around with the lighter, he just did? I've never seen anybody do that, so that it caught my eye that somebody was doing that.
Well, my friend David's probably watching this. He's probably laughing because when I made The Thing, this was the first film I made where I decided to take the script kind of out the door when it came to dialogue and have more improvisation with the actors. And so, yeah, it was mostly David, he plays that guy in the beginning. David was kind of going around with the lighter, and we just kind of did a couple close-ups real quick to then break away to the wide shot. And, yeah, he just was fooling around with the lighter. I haven't asked him. I guess he just does that when he's fooling around with the lighter, like he's just dicking off with it. But, yeah, I didn't.
I just know I'm always trying to keep my beer cold, and then he's fiddling with the lighter under it. Okay, Chad, over to you.
Hello, Miles. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you guys having me.
So what led you down to the path of wanting to make films?
Oh, man. Well, I've always been a huge fan of movies. You can see I have a ton, and I have like this whole room covered in them. But I've always been I guess you would say, creative person. I've always loved the arts. I played a lot of music, and I've always been interested in film, and I've been making this stuff with my friends. And then I just, one day, I knew that either I was going to pursue music or movies, and I just decided I wanted to do movies. I feel like I could do so much with it. And it's just one of those things people say, if you got the passion for it, it's something that's you're born with or not. And that's just one of those things I guess I was born with, because that's definitely what I want to do. Just a love for it is the main thing. And it's like, I think Quentin Tarantino said it. He just says, if you want to make a great movie, you want to make a movie that you want to see. And that's what I'm always thinking of. You know, I'd love to see a movie like this. So I'm going to I have all these ideas in my head, and I just want to see a movie like that. And that's one of the many reasons why I do it. But stuff like that really has made me want to make films.
Well, that leads me to my next question of what drew you to this story.
And the thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was trying to figure out my next short one I wanted to make, short film. I just did a thing called one called The Thing from the Other Side. It was a slasher movie. And I wanted to make something a little bit more simple, kind of go back to basics. And we filmed this movie in my house, and everything else I film always, goes somewhere else. And I was reading through the book, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and some other short story horror ones. And I was thinking maybe it could be an urban legend, and I just take it from that. Well, when I was reading it, it really stuck out to me because it was super simple, and the idea was really smart. In the book, the Thing short story is only 2 pages. And it's just really easy. Some guys hanging out, they see this figure, and then later the figure turns out to be him when he's dead. And I thought there was so much you could do with that. And it was so brilliantly written because it's just so subtle. And of course, when you read, you picture stuff in your mind, and I could picture that movie being made in my mind as soon as I read it. So I definitely thought it was a really cinematic too. And just the fact that it's such a simple but effective story, just like I said with Twilight Zone, just really simple ideas, but really done effectively.
I was really struck by the cinematography of it. The picture's great. It's great angles and stuff. So what kind of equipment did you use, and how did you pull that off?
Well, cinematography is one of the things where at the beginning, I just thought I was either going to be a director or cinematographer. So that's definitely one of my, I would say, stronger points when it comes to filmmaking. But I really wanted to make it as good as I can. And this one, I have a Nikon DSLR, something like that, and it's I think it's a 5600 camera. Basically, it shoots in 1080p. It's not a 4K camera or anything, huge, but it shoots pretty well off for what it is. And then I have just a Rode boom mic that just attaches on top of it. Just really simple stuff for this one. And that was kind of more or less the idea. The cinematography, I was really inspired by the Universal Classic movies and a couple other things like Donnie Darko. The whole silhouette in the street with Frank was definitely a big one for that. And it's just easy equipment, just regular Nikon DSLR camera, and simple stuff.
Well, it turned out really great. Like I said, the photography and stuff on it was amazing. I'm going to toss it back over to Wes, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah, man, appreciate it.
Now, Miles, is horror movies? Is that where your passion is? Is that where you see yourself? I guess I'm going to ask: is that your favorite genre? First of all,
yeah, I have like that, and then stuff over there. Horror movies. That's definitely my favorite genre. But I've done other films and other genres. I do plan to do that. I just feel like with horror, when you're making it as a filmmaker, number one, it's a lot easier because there's so many great horror movies that are low budget. Halloween and Friday the 13th, the first one, all of those classics didn't have a lot of money, but they were just so well made effectively with their budget. And also with horror, there's so many subgenres. You take other genres, there's not as many, but horror, there's so many different things you can do. There's supernatural, just the low budget stuff. There's the monster movies, and there's gore movies. There's the woods movies, the slasher movies. You know, there's all kinds of stuff you can do. So that's why I love horror, because there's just so many elements to it. I'm sure you guys know that too.
Well, actually, that was going to be my next question. Of the subgenres of horror, of course, now this one I guess you would call a supernatural thriller.
Yeah.
And then you said your previous work was more of a slasher type. What, if given your choice, which would you work in mostly?
Like subgenres in horror?
Yeah.
That's a good question, because I've, the slasher, and then this was kind of supernatural, and then this one I'm working on right now is kind of a straight up serial killer horror movie. I'm not for sure. I like slashers a lot, but I have to say ghosts and kind of the abnormal stuff would probably be my favorite if I had to pick. Probably ghosts or a slasher, but probably ghosts, because I feel like there's more scariness to that than other things.
See, now I agree with you. If I'm sitting and now I like a good slasher flick, but I wince every now and then. I'm still one of those guys that every now and then they just, okay, that was over the top. But I love something that keeps me guessing, not just waiting for the next kill. I like something that, that makes me want to understand it. And I think that's a lot of the attraction there. Now, finally, I just want to ask you, you said you're working on something else. What's our timeline on it? When will we see something else out there in the film festival circuit for Miles Beller?
Well, I have all my stuff is on YouTube, 138 Film Productions. And this last movie, The Thing, was at my first festival, so I plan on submitting more. But this next one is called Tears of the Clown. It's about this serial killer, dual personality clown. He kills people as clowns, but he works at an office job downtown, and he has a regular life with girl at home and everything. And then he obviously kills people inside his serial killer. And then stuff kind of gets crazy and he has to run away. But at the same time, there's this cop chasing after him. And it's kind of got the little bit of David Fincher's Zodiac and Seven built into it. But the serial killer stuff is a lot like American Psycho and those kind of classic serial killer type stuff. So there's a lot of good things for that. And that one's going to be feature length. I'm going to have about 20 or 30 actors in it, filming every weekend for the next couple of weeks. Got a couple stuff in the can already. Scene-wise, it's turned out really good. I'm really proud of this one. And I'm editing on a better software as well. And I think this one should be out around January next year. It'll be on Amazon Prime, and it will definitely be at a festival at some point early next year for sure.
Well, thank you so much. We're looking forward to seeing what you come up with next. Everybody, this has been Scarefest Television. Our feature presentation of the night was The Thing. He just told you how to find it on YouTube if you missed it. Miles Beller, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Scarefest Television is evolving, and you can be a part of that journey. Our fans are submitting great content, and that content is driving the show forward. Do you have an idea for a Scarefest Television segment? Much of what you see during the show wasn't even our idea. It came directly from the fans of the Scarefest, and the fans know what the fans want to see. Of course, we are still looking for makeup and horror effect videos, horror movie shorts, and paranormal location segments, but we are open to all ideas. Contact us at scarefestradio@gmail.com and become a part of something big.